We cannot fight with those cars.
Then also I stopped racing, and then we all together.
Hold on, there is a date circled on Max Verstappen's calendar, and it is not a race day. It is the Hungarian Grand Prix. Because after Hungary, if Max is not sitting inside the top 2 in this championship, his contract gives him the legal right to walk away from Red Bull completely. And last year, that same clause said top 3. This year, they tightened it, made it harder to survive. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, so where does he go? Ferrari is already blocked. 2 lead drivers, no space, no conversation happening there. McLaren is even messier. The only way Max fits at McLaren is if they push Oscar Piastri out, and that is a political earthquake nobody at McLaren wants to trigger, which leaves exactly one door open, and Toto Wolff is standing in front of cameras telling the world Mercedes has no space for Max, while his own people are quietly saying the total opposite. Everything in this story is moving at once. Let's break down exactly what this means, because nobody is explaining it clearly. But before we dig deeper, hit that like button and subscribe for more upcoming updates on Max. 2 clauses, 2 seasons, 1 big mess. So before we go deeper, let me clear something up, because there is genuine confusion floating around about this topic, and if you get it wrong, the comments will not be kind. There are actually 2 different exit clauses being discussed from 2 completely different seasons. In 2025, Max could leave if he was outside the top 3 at the summer break. He ended up guaranteed 3rd going into that break, so the clause was voided and he stayed. But the 2026 clause is a completely different animal. This one says top 2 or nothing, not top 3 like last year, top 2. And right now, Max is 9th. That gap between where he is and where he needs to be, that is the entire story we are telling today. The clause nobody saw coming. This is the detail that genuinely stopped me when I read it, because this goes much deeper than a contract negotiation. This clause was not written in panic after a bad season. It was written in 2022. Max was 24 years old, about to win his first world title, completely dominant at the absolute peak of his powers, and he looked at the 2026 regulations on paper and told his management to put an exit clause in his contract because he did not trust what Formula One was building.
The problem is, to me, it looks pretty terrible. I think that's not the way forward.
4 years ago. He saw this coming 4 years ago and protected himself legally before anyone else was even paying attention. That is not a driver complaining about a bad weekend. That is a driver who understood exactly where this sport was heading and quietly built himself a door marked emergency exit just in case. The clause is getting stricter. Now here is the part that makes this even more interesting. The fact that the clause tightened from top 3 to top 2 is not just a contractual detail, it is a psychological one. It means that with every passing year, as the regulations got closer and Max's apprehension grew, his lawyers raised the bar for what would keep him at Red Bull. The conditions under which he would stay got harder to meet because his trust in the direction of the sport kept falling. Sky Sports F1's Simon Lazenby confirmed it directly. 2nd or worse, and Max has the legal right to walk. And the activation window is specific. If he is 3rd or lower after the Hungarian Grand Prix on July 24th, that clause triggers. He then has until October to formally tell Red Bull he wants out. That timeline is not abstract anymore. It is 11 weeks away. The Mercedes angle. Let's talk about the destination everyone is whispering about, but nobody wants to say out loud. RTL reporter Felix Gorner, citing a reliable source, said Max would not even need to make a phone call. His contract gives him what was described as great freedom to move. And despite Toto Wolff publicly saying there is no room at Mercedes, Gorner's sources say those remarks are a facade, that there is always a place for Verstappen at Mercedes because his camp has strong ties to Wolff. So you have Wolff on stage saying one thing, and the people closest to this situation saying something completely different in private. That gap between what gets said in press conferences and what gets discussed on private jets, that is the kind of F1 drama that reminds you why you fell in love with this sport in the first place. Why he might stay anyway. But listen, and this is the part that makes this video different from every other doom piece you will watch this week. Dutch newspaper De Telegraaf, which is known to be extremely close to the Verstappen camp, reported that Max is not planning to leave Red Bull regardless of the exit clause situation. A switch is not under active consideration. And Mickey's addressed it directly, saying they are having zero discussions about those aspects, and that when Red Bull gives Max a fast car, he will be a much happier driver. So here is the tension that makes this genuinely fascinating. The clause is almost mathematically certain to be triggered, and yet the people closest to Max are saying he does not currently intend to use it. A man who built his own escape route 4 years ago, who has every legal right to walk, who was sitting ninth in the championship, and he is still showing up to engineering meetings asking how to make the car faster. The real question, and this is where I want to slow down because this is the question that nobody in the F1 media is actually sitting with. Why? Why does a man who wrote his own exit clause in 2022, who predicted this exact situation years before it happened, who has Mercedes quietly keeping a seat warm, why does he keep saying he wants to stay and fix it from the inside? The answer I keep coming back to is this. Max Verstappen does not want an easy championship. He wants this championship with this team. Because walking away and winning somewhere else will always carry an asterisk in his own mind. The clause is his insurance policy. It was never meant to be his goodbye letter. What happens next? So let's bring it all together. There are 2 clauses, 2 seasons, and 1 driver sitting ninth in the championship with a legal exit window opening in 11 weeks. The 2026 clause is stricter than 2025 top 2 or Max can walk. Mercedes is publicly saying no room while privately keeping the door open. And yet the man at the center of all of this is still in the factory, still in the meetings, still fighting for a car he genuinely believes can be fixed. My personal take, Max is not leaving, not this summer. The clause will trigger mathematically, but the intention to use it is not there yet. However, and this is a big however, that changes the moment Red Bull shows up to Hungary with no answers and no upgrades. But here's the question I will leave you with, and I genuinely want your answer in the comments below. If the upgrade doesn't come before Hungary, and the clause activates and Mercedes calls, does Max pick up the phone?